I want to share my journey, the mistakes I made, the lessons I learned, and how shifting from control to connection changed everything, not just for me, but for the children I was working with. I want you to think about your own experiences. Have you ever found yourself frustrated, wondering, why won't they just listen to me? If you have, trust me, you're not alone. It's the transition from listen to me to I'm listening that changed the way I work with children and honestly, the way I show up in the world.
Welcome to I Am Education, the place where we unpack the education system, the behaviours and development of children, and how it impacts you, the educators, teachers, and leaders in this space. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Jason, and we are your hosts on this journey to being the best educator and teacher you can be. A place for you to be seen, to be heard, to be challenged.
And where you can learn how to stop burnout and how to change your current reality and the lives of the children in your classroom.
In each episode, we will dive deeper into the tools, frameworks, and practices that help you show up for yourself and for children you work with each and every day.
So let's go. It's time to learn why you matter.
Hello and welcome to I Am Education. I'm Jason Alexander, and today we're diving into a powerful shift that changed the way I work with children and honestly, the way I show up in the world. It's the transition from listen to me to I'm listening. I used to believe that to guide children, I needed to be in control, that my words carried authority, and if I just explained myself well enough, or let's be honest, if I repeated myself enough times, they would eventually listen. But what I didn't realize was that I was so focused on being heard that I wasn't actually hearing them. So today, I want to share my journey, the mistakes I made, the lessons I learned, and how shifting from control to connection changed everything, not just for me, but for the children I was working with. And as we go through this, I want you to think about your own experiences. Have you ever found yourself frustrated, wondering, why won't they just listen to me? If you have, trust me, you're not alone. Now, my entry into early childhood education began at 18. I had no real direction, no idea what I was doing, so I reverted to a simple belief. I am adult, you are child, you should listen to me. And let me tell you, if your goal is complete control, and you have an iron will, and you don't mind children not really wanting to be around you, this approach works perfectly. I ran a tight ship. I was the captain, and my little crew, well trained. They followed instructions, they complied, and I thought, I'm doing great. But the thing is, there was always this underlying tension. The threat of mutiny was constantly afoot. Maintaining control was exhausting, and it wasn't sustainable. And worst of all, the children weren't actually engaged. They didn't actually care about me. They were just obeying. And over time, that started to wear me down. The joy I had for this work, it was fading. It was fading fast. I felt drained. I started questioning if this career was really for me. So naturally, I swung the pendulum completely the other way, dropped the authority, changed centers, and decided to be the fun guy. And guess what? It was amazing at first. I built connections. I had strong relationships with everyone. But when it came time for them to actually listen to me, that wasn't happening. So here I was again, frustrated, drained, and wondering, what am I missing? And that is when it hit me. In all of this, I had never actually listened to the children I was educating. Not just their words, not just their actions, but also their emotions, their needs. I had spent so much time trying to be heard that I never stopped to actually hear them. And this wasn't some aha moment for me that just simply came in one night. It was actually the children who taught me. I started observing them, not through the lens of how can I best control this environment, but through genuine curiosity. I watched how they interacted with each other, how they navigated friendships, how their connections weren't based on control or compliance, but on mutual acceptance, trust, and love. This moment changed everything. I made a conscious shift. Instead of leading from a place of authority, I started leading from a place of connection. This was the first and probably most profound lesson I've learned in early childhood. Now, behaviour, as I always refer to it as, is the physical representation of an unmet need. In more simpler terms, behaviour is communication. For so long, I saw behaviour as something to manage, a problem to correct. Even the way we talk about it, behaviour management, is the common term. But the truth is, every behaviour is simply a message. Think about it. Children don't always have the words to express how they feel. Even as adults, when we're frustrated, overwhelmed, or anxious, we don't always communicate clearly. Now imagine being a child, experiencing these big emotions, sometimes for the first time, but not having the language or the emotional regulation skills to explain them. Instead of saying, I feel left out, a child might push another child. Instead of saying, I need help, they might shut down completely. Here is a classic example that many of you would experience. There was a child I worked with who constantly interrupted during group discussions. You know the type. You're probably imagining them in your mind right now. And my first instinct? Correct him. We listen when others are talking. You need to wait your turn. But when I take a step back and I really listened, I realized this child wasn't interrupting to be disruptive. He was interrupting because he was desperate to feel heard. Every time he spoke, he was looking for validation. Do you see me? Do I matter? So I shifted my approach. Instead of simply shutting him down, I made space for him. I started saying, I see you have something important to say. Let's make sure we hear you at the right time. And over time, the interruptions almost completely stopped. I checked in with that child, letting him know when the right time was. He felt seen, he felt heard. And you see, that's the thing. When we see behaviour as communication, we stop asking, how do I get this child to listen? And start asking, what is this child trying to tell me? And that shift, I'll be the first one to tell you that it changes everything. Now here's another one for you. We've all experienced them. The amazing moments of a tantrum. We know them well. We've all experienced it. And there's been times where we probably wanted to join them on the floor. So when a child is melting down, what's our first instinct? Stop it. Calm them down. Control the situation. But what if we saw it differently? What if we asked, what is actually happening for this child right now? Are they feeling unheard? Overstimulated? Struggling with a transition? Seeking connection? If we jump straight to discipline without listening, we often miss the message entirely. Now, this does not mean that we ignore challenging behaviours. It means we approach them with curiosity instead of control. Instead of stop yelling, we try, I see you're getting really upset. What's going on? Instead of punishing, we guide. Instead of reacting, we respond. Ultimately, we connect. And here's the kicker. When children feel heard, they behave more appropriately for the situation they're in. And it's not because they have a great fear of consequence, but it's because they feel safe, they feel understood, and they feel supported. Cooperation becomes the byproduct of the connection, not the focus of it. So here's one for you to think about. Think about the last child that frustrated you with behaviour. What were they trying to tell you at the time? Now, the next concept might feel a little counterintuitive at first, but by relinquishing control, we actually gain more. A common process in a Montessori classroom is referred to as freedom within limits. If we can accurately, confidently communicate the limits that we expect from children, and we allow them to have the freedom to navigate between them, they feel more empowered, and ultimately, they feel as though their needs are being met. So, as educators, we've all been there. We have walked into a classroom, and our first thought is often, oh dear, what is going on? I need to control this. I need to stay in control. I need to manage the space and everyone in it. You there, come sit over here. You put that down. You this, you that, you this. The directions come thick, they come fast, and they're pretty overwhelming for everyone. And so, I used to think by asserting control, by making sure everything was in my hands, I could guarantee success. But as we've already realized, running that tight ship, it has some downsides. Most notably, a bit of burnout. That word that so many educators use all the time, I'm feeling burnt out. Trying to maintain that tight ship every day, it'll do it to you. And so over the years, I've learned that when we try to control every little thing, we actually start to lose something far more valuable: the connection. Think about it this way. When we're constantly directing, correcting, or forcing compliance, we're focusing so much on the task at hand that we lose sight of the child in front of us. We're not building relationships or guiding children to make better choices. We're simply ensuring things go the way that we want. But ironically, this approach often leads to more resistance, more power struggles, and less cooperation. So here's an example from my early days working in early childhood education. I remember working with a child who was particularly strong-willed. Every time you asked them to clean up, they would refuse. Back in the day, my first response? Force. Remember, I'm adult, you are child, you will listen to me. That was the mindset. This is non-negotiable. Get it done. Wow. And I wonder why it didn't work. The more I pushed, the more the child resisted. And it turned into this power battle where no one wins, and ultimately connection is the biggest loser. The tension grew day by day. The power struggle continued. Do this. No. Do that. No. It wasn't until I started looking at how I was communicating, the fact that I wasn't listening, and I realized also that I was simply trying to control the situation and everyone within it. I was missing something. Now, I would love to be able to have a time machine to go back to experience these moments again, to teach myself a better way, but also I needed to go through it in order to learn what I now know. So in that situation, it's time to pack up. No, pack it away now. No, this is a non-negotiable. What would happen if I stepped back? If I stepped back just a little, and instead of enforcing my control, I gave this child the chance to take ownership of the situation. What if I gave them a choice instead of simply a demand? And what if I inserted myself into this process as well? Imagine saying, instead of non-negotiable, make it happen, it's time to pack up. All right, I'm going to do some of it and you're going to do some of it. I want you to figure out what you're going to be in charge of, and I want you to figure out what I'm going to be in charge of. The choices are blocks or books. Which one's for you and which one's for me? The shift is incredible. Children feel as though they actually have a choice in the matter. They have a bit of autonomy. They feel seen. They feel heard. And so when I stop trying to micromanage every single moment, children feel more control of their actions. And to be honest, when we're in the classroom, that's the child's classroom. It's not ours. We are simply a guide in this space. We are not the be-all and end-all. When children have these feelings, suddenly it's almost like magic. They're much more willing to help. That is the power of being seen. And so here's the key when it comes to removing control to gain more control. By relinquishing some of the control, I gained more cooperation from the children, more engagement, more trust, and ultimately more connection. The child wasn't simply following a directive, they were making their own decision, which empowers them. And the best part, they were more likely to do what was asked of them because they owned that decision. But why does this work? Why does relinquishing control often lead to better outcomes? Simple. Respect. It all comes down to respect. Children, just like adults, need to feel respected in their choices. When we exert overpowering control, it can often feel like their voice doesn't matter. Like we're saying, I know what's best for you. Taking us back into I am adult, you are child mentality. But when we give them a voice, we acknowledge their needs, their perspectives, and their autonomy. We show them that we trust them to make a decision, which fosters mutual respect. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship. Let's think about it in a different context. Think about a time where you've been in a meeting or a conversation where someone was overly controlling. You know the type. You've probably been the type. This is that person who has to tell you exactly how to do everything. I've been this type. It's frustrating. You may tune out or simply resist, even if you're agreeing with the ultimate goal. And like I said, I've been that leader. But that's another topic all in itself. Now imagine a scenario where someone asked you for your input and truly listened to your ideas. You'd likely feel more valued and willing to engage, right? The same principle applies to children. When we relinquish control, we create a collaborative space where children actually feel like they're part of the process. We stop being dictators and we become partners in their learning journey. I just want to emphasize that this is their learning journey. Your learning journey follows alongside it, but ultimately you are guiding them to best understand the world around them. Now, transitions. As educators, we have developed tips and tricks about transitions. And I used to think that if I didn't control when and how a child moved from one activity to the next, chaos would ensue. So I used to say, time for lunch, no arguments. But guess what? That created resistance. Eventually, it took time, but I realized that if I gave children a bit more autonomy in those transitions, they were much more likely to move with ease. And we simply go back to offering of a choice. And so when we offer choices, this is the key. Provide an option where either one works for both you and them. Simple questions like this simple process of choices. Let them take ownership, and then the transition, the cooperation, it follows. In the long run, the more we can step back and allow children to make decisions, the stronger their self-regulation begins. The stronger their self-regulation becomes. They learn to manage themselves and make choices in alignment with their values, not just because they're following an order. So, what are we really gaining when we relinquish control? We're gaining respect, cooperation, collaboration, and a deeper connection. We're also gaining children who feel more competent, more confident, and more invested in the outcomes of their work. And isn't that the ultimate goal? Helping children grow into capable, self-assured individuals? We are gaining so much more than we could ever achieve by holding on to that power. When we talk about the shift from listen to me to I'm listening, we're really talking about a mindset change. And here's the thing. When we, as adults, embrace the power of actively listening to children, everything changes. We unlock the potential for better communication, stronger relationships, and ultimately a more positive environment for learning and growth. And it seems simple, right? Just listen. But it's so much more than hearing the words. It's about truly hearing a child's message, their needs, and their emotions. Active listening is a skill that goes far beyond merely waiting for your turn to speak. It's about showing up fully present, without distractions, giving a child the space to be seen and heard. I remember a moment, once again, there were so many moments in the early days of learning when I started my early childhood journey. A child came up to me visibly upset. They were having trouble with a friend and they couldn't seem to express what was bothering them. At this time, I would have jumped in and suggested, maybe you should just talk to them or just ignore them. But as I learnt over time, it became an opportunity for me to take a step back and simply listen. What happened? And then I listened, not just to their words, but to the emotions behind them. What I noticed was incredible. The children's voice softened as they spoke. Their frustrations faded when they realized I was genuinely interested in what they had to say. And it wasn't about fixing the problem right away. It was about giving them the emotional space to feel understood. And when I gave them that, the child was able to process their emotions and begin to find their own solutions. It was in this moment that I realized the power of listening. It doesn't require an immediate fix or a response. Sometimes the best thing we can do for a child is to simply let them know they are being heard. And this validation is more powerful than we often realize. Listening sends a message to children. I see you. I respect you. You matter. It helps them feel valued. And when children feel valued, they are more likely to show respect in return. And just as importantly, it teaches them that their voice does matter. We're modeling the importance of open communication, mutual respect, and problem solving. So one way to practice active listening is to engage with open-ended questions. Instead of asking yes, no questions, try questions like, how did that make you feel? What do you think might help? What do you need right now? These types of questions invite children to reflect, and they also demonstrate that we are truly interested in their experiences. It shifts the focus from giving instructions to encouraging self-expression and problem solving. There's also a huge belief to non-verbal listening. There's also a huge benefit to non-verbal listening. How often do we listen without making eye contact or without truly being present? I'll admit, I've been guilty of it. But when we show our attentiveness through body language, by kneeling to their level, making eye contact, using a calm and inviting tone, children respond, match, and mirror their nervous system. It tells them that their words are important, and right now, we are fully engaged in this moment. We're opening the door to understanding, creating an environment where children can be open about their thoughts, feelings, and the challenges without fear of judgment or interruption. And so, what are we building in these moments? It's a deeper relationship with them. By listening to children, children are learning to listen to themselves. By modeling our active listening, we empower them to reflect, make decisions, and regulate their emotions. We help them develop the skills they need to communicate effectively, not just with us, but with others as well. So the next time a child approaches you, remember, it's not about having all the answers. Sometimes it's simply about being there, being present, and truly listening. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for them is simply to say, I'm listening. I know what you're thinking. How am I meant to fit all this listening into my busy day? I've already got enough on my plate. And so I want to leave you with a question. What's faster? 3 minutes of actively listening. Yes, that means not multitasking, being truly present. Or 30 minutes of dealing with a dysregulated, frustrated child who doesn't feel seen or heard, where no multitasking can take place. Just let that sink in for a moment. When we take a few minutes to listen and truly listen, we're saving time in the long run. A child who doesn't feel seen or heard can often really struggle to regulate their emotions. They're likely to escalate their behaviors, causing more frustrations, confusion, and let's be honest, probably a bigger breakdown later. But when we pause to listen, even just for 3 minutes, we allow them the space to express what's bothering them. We're not only addressing the root cause of the frustration, but also validating how they feel. And quite often, it's all they need to start processing their emotions more calmly on their own. It doesn't matter how busy I am or what I have on my list. Whenever I've taken the time to stop and acknowledge a child, it has always created a ripple effect that impacts the rest of our day in the most positive of ways. And so the process of staying present, our phones beep, we've got paperwork to finish. It can be hard, but when it comes down to it, we're prioritizing what truly matters in this moment right now. The trick that I use, I yawn as a physical reminder to myself of, hey, you need to be present. You need to be right here. Slow down. Nothing else matters right now. And I've done it that often where now, as soon as I am about to enter a possibly conflicting conversation with a child, my body immediately goes, hey, you need to yawn. And I found that I have anchored this reminder in a physical response. I want to leave you with one final thought. Shifting from listen to me to I'm listening is a fundamental shift in how we see children. It's about seeing children as partners in the learning process, not just the recipients of our wisdom. When we approach our interactions from a place of listening, we build a foundation of trust and mutual respect. It's not about establishing the power dynamics or asserting authority, but it's about forging genuine connections. This shift has completely transformed how I approach my work as an educator, and I know it will do the same for you. When we listen to children, we show them that their thoughts, feelings, and experiences matter. So today, or tomorrow, whenever you're next with children, I want you to pause and I want you to ask yourself, am I really listening? Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of I Am Education. If this resonated with you, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on future episodes. Send it to someone who could use this reminder, and please like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time.